Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be getting into my top 10 greatest novels of all time. I'm going to be doing it in a power ranking format, just to add a little bit of spice to it. We have a lot of great books by a lot of great authors, but still with so many different authors out there, some authors would definitely dominate my power rankings if I did not make a rule that an author can only appear on these power rankings once. So, an author dear and dear to my heart, whose books I love, Dostoevsky, for instance, would definitely have a few books on this power ranking. But we are limiting it to just one per author. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 10, we have The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I really enjoyed this novel when I first read it, sophomore year of high school. Obviously, that was kind of a long time ago for me now, but this was an impactful book for me. It really got me into a consistent reading process. I love the plot and the characters, and at the time, Ayn Rand's philosophy of individualism and really like self-love was really inspiring to me. And I have since kind of created new philosophies, listened to different thinkers, and I've gone further away from that objectivist philosophy. But whether or not you agree with the philosophy, I think the plot here is incredible. Definitely 5 stars, like every book on this list, and I would recommend. Just inside the top 10, we got Dune by Frank Herbert coming in at number 9. Now this is it's definitely the best science fiction novel I've ever read. I enjoyed the whole Dune series. I read it all the way through, and let me tell you something. There's a lot of people who really hate on the Dune novels for just being what they are, for being very thorough, political and economic atmospheres that are self-contained. For me, as a political science major, as someone who really enjoys that stuff, it was great. And I enjoyed this first book because you really get to get into the character of Paul Atreides and to get into the history and culture of the Fremen peoples. And so that is what probably makes this book stand out above the rest of them. But I even loved a lot of the other books, and I would even say that number 3 is probably my favorite in the series, though a lot of people don't like that book in the series. I really enjoy the world building that Frank Herbert is doing here. Coming in at number 8, we have Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I think the full name for this is Don Quixote de la Mancha, but everyone just calls it Don Quixote, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone knows what you're talking about. Here's the thing. This is just an incredibly fun novel, and to think that you're going to get too much depth-wise out of it may be a little insane. I don't know that I think there is something there, but for me it was just a fun ride, and I didn't go too deep into what it meant about the Spanish Inquisition and what it meant, making fun of chivalry stories and of the hero in the stories and glorifying violence and literature and all of that stuff that I think are definitely themes in this book that are well explored. And I think when you get into the individual pages of it, there are a lot of really good quotes. But ultimately, just go along for the ride with Don Quixote. This book is absolutely hilarious. Coming in at number 7, we have what might be the real first surprise guest on this list, and that is A Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is one of the most cocaine crack reads that I've ever read. It is just insanely engaging. I think I read this in 4 days. It's more than 400 pages. I was just flying through this. I could not put it down. And there's not enough good things to say about Donna Tartt's active writing style and about how she ties in Greek mythology in this book and how she just perfectly encapsulates the vibe of one of those colleges in the Northeast, or really just a small college. And myself, having gone to a small college, maybe not the type of small college that Donna Tartt is talking about, I could really appreciate that in the small college experience described here. Although, again, my college experience was very different than that. But this is just an incredible read with incredible plot twists and incredible character development for every single character. And there's a lot of characters in this book. Taking up the number 6 spot in our rotation, we have Big Sur by Jack Kerouac. Now, Kerouac is one of those authors that I would absolutely add every single one of his books to a top 10 list if I was allowing the list to have more than one book from each author. And maybe that's a little bit of hyperbole, but his books are really good. You get the point. His prose flows insanely well. And I think that this is the most self-aware of his novels, which is saying a lot because he is very self-aware and very autobiographical. And I think that just going into his mind here and seeing the way that his alcoholism affects him and the way he perceives that, how that negatively affects him, and how he is much more aware than in his younger days. I think that this is a really powerful novel, and one that really hit me when I read it, and I just absolutely flew through this one as well. And so I would recommend this for anyone who hasn't read any Jack Kerouac, who just wants to read one. Read Big Sur, but read all of them. Leading off for the top 5, we have The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Cormac is one of those authors that you read his books and you can sense that there's something different. I absolutely am in love with his writing style. I think a lot of people make fun of it, a lot of people meme it, but it's great. And he definitely engages you and makes you feel like you're reading long form poetry in a sense. I don't have a copy of The Road, which really frustrated me when I went to Barnes and Noble today, and I could not find a copy of The Road. They had a copy of literally every other Cormac McCarthy novel, but I could not find a copy of The Road. So I will not be holding up a copy of The Road, but I might put a picture of it on the screen right here. And I would definitely recommend reading The Road. It is a great novel about a father and his son walking through a post-nuclear wasteland, and the love between them and the bond between them, and just trying to survive in a world that is very different from our own. Coming in at number 4 on my list, I've got The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I've got a very beautiful copy of this that I am borrowing from my brother for this video. Although he doesn't know that I'm doing that, so don't tell him. Anyway, so this is just a amazingly thought-provoking novel that has a lot of incredible themes. The nature of beauty, just the way that people decline so quickly, and obsession, and the value and the power of good art. There's a lot going on here. I read this a long time ago, and so I can't remember everything perfectly, but man, what an incredible read, and definitely deserves to be in the top 5 on this list. I feel like, am I wrong? We're getting to the part of this list where it gets from being like great books to insanely good books that are, you're not even sure if they're written by humans or if just some AI program created this book. And that's where we are at with this book, which is number 3 on the list, 1984 by George Orwell. Now, this is a very old copy that I think my mom had when she was in high school. This is the copy I read. I didn't go to a high school that made me read very many classics. We definitely read, The Scarlet Letter. We read Romeo and Juliet. We read some very basic stuff that was very short and very simple reading level, I would say. We didn't get into this, but I did read this in high school and absolutely love the concepts. I love the 1984 movie. By that, I mean the movie made in 1984 by Michael Radford. Um, it is just an incredible, perfect portrait of this. So if you want to know what this is about, but you don't want to read the book, go watch the movie because it is perfectly encapsulates almost everything that happens in the book. And the book is about a lot of things that I don't think I'm gonna really get into here because like it is so much. The nature of perception and history and truth and like what defines truth? Is it what I say? Is it what you say? Is it what the majority of people say? What defines a good society? And I think I got to read a little bit from this book because there is the classic, themes that are introduced in the first few pages, and I think that this really defines what the book is. And there's definitely a lot to this book. But again, this segment definitely defines what the book is. It says, and these were the three slogans of the party: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Now, that is some really interesting stuff, and obviously George Orwell was trying to make very political points with this book. But again, what an incredible novel, the greatest dystopian novel that there is for sure, and definitely deserves to be in the top three. For number two, we have what I would consider to probably be for most people another surprise novel on this list, and that is My Name is Red by Orhan Pamuk. Now, I read this book probably 2 years ago and haven't picked it up again since, but it was that impactful at the time for me. The way that this story is told, it has like alternating characters. Every story is told from the perspective of a different character or object. Every chapter, but it does start to repeat after 10 or so chapters, and you kind of get into the groove of it. It's kind of a lot of smaller chapters. Now, one of the chapters is even told from the perspective of a gold coin, and then just the historical. I don't know how historically accurate it is. That's actually bullshit. But you know what? It is just really interesting how it's set in this historical scene. I really appreciate the work of Orhan Pamuk. I've read The Red-Haired Woman by Orhan Pamuk is a novel, another incredible Turkish novel. But again, his writing style it is just very good. It draws you in, and just it's so different for an American reader. I think the concepts and the culture and really just taking you into the heart of the Ottoman Empire and taking you into art at the time and taking you into what romance looks like for these people at this point in time in history. This is, could be considered a very good romance novel. Well, you shouldn't be surprised about this if you know me very well. The number one book on my list is, of course, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Now, I don't even know where to start with this book necessarily. It is a 800-page work of absolute genius fiction. It is, considered maybe a work of Christian fiction by some. I think the scope may not really necessarily be that narrow, although it definitely does have a Christian focus and message to it, which I think is great. I also think that there's a lot of hope to this book, and just the way that all of the characters are portrayed is pretty genius, with the three brothers being so unique and each having their own unique inspiration and relationship with their father. There being so many good philosophical conversations in this novel. number one, Alyosha being the perfect character. It is a really very lovable character who is told everything by everyone, who just listens and kind of is a go-between for a lot of people, and is a very peaceful person in many ways, and gets along well with the children, which we love. We love. This is number one for sure. Dostoevsky is another one of those authors that, if I could fill this top 10 by my own arbitrary rules, I can't, out with the books of one author, then probably the top five would all be Dostoevsky, because his writing is that good, and the substance in it is just so thick and amazing. But again, Alyosha is just the perfect character, and if you've read the book, you know what I mean. But again, read the book and you'll know what I mean. And he really is that perfect go-between that is very inspirational to me. Ivan has an incredible dialogue in this book, which is called the well, tell me the name of it down in the comments, but I can't remember the name of that chapter. That's really very a famous chapter. But again, number one on the list for good reason. Let's just round this out. Tell me what you think of my list, and I want to know what you guys think down below. Like, what are your lists? What are your top 10? Even just make a top 5 if top 10 is too many. I know it's very hard for me to make a top 5, because there were books that, missed out on the top 5 that I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm glad I got to do all 10 of them, in order to say, like, these are really good books as well. But I'm still going to rank them. And again, the rankings are not definite, not final, because the rankings are always changing for me. But leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment what you think your top 10 are, and you can follow me on my social medias down below. Thanks.